I can use for next year. So like a celebrity now. Okay, so hello, Tessa. Tessa. Hello. Hold on, let me drop the link again. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna kind of read through it. This is a sample question that would, well, it's an old question 1. So on the AP exam, there are 6 FRQs, and the first one is typically the easiest one. So they give you something that's either from chapters like 1, 2, or 3. So you're gonna have to describe some sort of image, some sort of graph, and do a little bit of analysis with the graph. But it is meant to be the easiest question on the exam, just to like make you feel good, basically.
Right.
So yeah, I'll just kind of read it, and then you guys can tell me like what to highlight and what you guys think would be important, and we'll just kind of talk about, you know, what information to pull, because some of the questions are a little wordy. So
All right.
okay, so to determine the amount of sugar in a typical serving of breakfast cereal, a student randomly selected 60 boxes of different types of cereal from the shelves of a large grocery store. The student noticed that the side panels of some of the cereal boxes showed sugar content based on 1 cup servings, while others showed it based on 3/4 cup servings. Many of the cereal boxes with side panels that showed 3/4 cup servings were ones that appealed to young children, and the student wondered whether there might be some difference in the sugar content of the cereals that showed a different serving size on their side panel. To investigate the question, the data were separated into 2 groups. One group consisted of 29 cereals that showed 1 cup serving sizes, and the other consisted of 31 cereals that showed 3/4 cup serving sizes. The box plots shown below display sugar content in grams per serving of the cereal for each of the 2 serving sizes. And then we have 2 box plots here. So let's, Tessa, you feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat, whatever you want to do. What do you want? What's important? What's sticking out to you?
I always like to look at numbers. So we have one group consisted of 29 cereals, and the other one was 31.
I just see like the box plots that stand out to me the most, of course, since they're like the pictures, but the spread looks like it's more than the other one on top.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one box has definitely got more variation. That's a good thing to note. Anything else, Kai or Tessa? Either way.
I guess we can see that it's randomly selected at the top phrase.
Yeah. That is important, because sometimes on the first question, they will set it up in the beginning, like, here's a situation, blah, blah, blah. And it's usually 2 parts, but sometimes it's 3. And sometimes that third part talks about a significance test or a confidence interval. No, you're good, Tessa. Love dogs. You're all good. So sometimes it's good to note that information here, because like I said, sometimes they'll ask you like, oh, if you were to do an interval or if you were to conduct a test, are the conditions satisfied? So they'll actually ask you to do like the planned step as if you were going to do a significance test or something like that.
Okay.
So it's not a bad thing to pick out, because I've seen that a few times where they'll have you describe something but then follow up with some sort of confidence interval or significance thing. But those are basically the things I would pick out. The only other thing is that we're looking at a difference in 2 groups, so maybe just picking out the content, or context, but you can also see that here. There's one other feature on the box plot that I would probably stand out to me. Any thoughts? There's one other like weirdly offset thing in one of them, but not the other one.
Would it be that one is measuring 1 cup and the other is measuring 3/4.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to know because right now that's going to be our context.
Okay.
Anything else, man? Oh, go ahead, Joseph.
One looks more symmetric to me, or like
Yep.
it being towards the middle is more symmetric, right?
Yeah. This median is awful high compared to the other one, just higher than the other one, but also in its box. That line is always the median. That is centered a bit higher in the box, so kind of at the top end of that data set, which could indicate kind of a skew because it's pulled way up to the top. Okay, so that's kind of what I would do. Now, when I graded FRQs last year at the AP reading, I graded a box plot question, and I don't know if it was the pandemic or the closure, but it was a little rough. Unfortunately, there's a lot of box plot questions on question 1. They just come up a lot. They like box plots, I guess. So the first thing that generally, if you see two graphs generally means they're going to say compare things. And so they're going to say, write a few sentences to compare the distributions. And the biggest thing to remember about comparing is you have to use a comparison word. And you're going to hear that also in the StatsMedic review a lot. So a comparison word, like in order to change the highlighter. In order to actually compare something, on the rubric, I couldn't give credit if a kid didn't say less than or greater than. If they said anything else, I basically couldn't give any points. So the only way to really compare something in AP Stats or really ever is greater than, less than, or equal to, or similar to.
Okay.
If two things happen to be the same, you have to say that. Otherwise, it's a sad day. And I had a lot of great descriptions, and then it was like, a lot of... I couldn't give any points. A lot of students, which you never want to say, is like the word while or something like that. Like they would say, oh, the 1 cup has a median of this while the other one has a median of this. And they just basically listed all the information out for both when they described it, but they didn't actually compare the values. On a box plot, on the rubric, shape, you don't have to include shape, or it's very flexible for box plots because it is a little hard to see since you don't have all of the data points really. So if you use, that's my bird clock. If you, I don't know if you can hear that. If you use any sort of shape descriptor, as long as it's generally like okay, they'll count it. But if you can also just leave it off. And also numbers aren't needed. So you don't have to give a number. You can just say the median for this one is higher than that one, and that's fine too. So you don't actually have to have numbers.
Okay.
Well, let's break this down. So I'm going to do socks. This is from way back when. Shape, center, outlier, spread. And we can just kind of construct some things here. So for the shape, Tessa, you talked about shape a little bit. Which one do you think looks kind of symmetric, and which one do you think could be skewed? You can unmute if you want to. I don't care if I hear a barking dog. It's totally fine.
I feel like the bottom one looks slightly skewed, but like, I don't know. I don't remember how to tell if they are.
Yeah, there's not a great way to tell, to be totally honest. So this one, you could say, like, since this tail is a little bit longer than this one, that it's skewed. The other thing you could say up here too is like that this median is shifted way up. So like, but again, shape is pretty flexible. So as long as you reasonably describe it, you're usually okay. So hello, Erica. Are you here for the review, or did you need something else?
I'm just here for the review.
Oh, great. All right. Let me drop the question we're working on. It's just a little Google Doc there. So you have the actual question and the answer, and then I'll link this recording as well to it. So, okay, so in terms of shape, we could say, I'm going to double check the key just to make sure I don't guide you in the wrong direction. Just when in doubt, check the key, just to make sure. Okay, and they may not have shape in here, but I just want to make sure before I go through. Yeah, okay, yeah. So, all right, so this one, we could say both of them are slightly skewed as long as we justify why. The other option is that you could say roughly symmetric on either of them and also get credit. So if you use the word roughly, it just kind of gives you some flexibility. It's a nice little word. So, but we'll kind of go with, we'll say the 1 cup serving, boy stylus, is, we could say roughly symmetrical based on the fact that the box is kind of centered, but again, you could also justify saying slightly skewed because the median is way up at the top. So, and here you can say while because you're not comparing, you know, shape's not quantitative, it's just a descriptor. So here you can say the word while. On the rest of them, though, you will have to kind of compare some stuff. So 1 cup serving is roughly symmetric, while the 3/4 cup serving is slightly skewed. So if you use like those little LY words, and you'll hear that a lot in the Stats Medic review, then that kind of just gives you a little grace. But like I said, shape is flexible. It's not necessarily, it doesn't come up on the grading rubric per se. So, you could leave it out and also be fine. Okay, what about outliers? You guys remember how to tell if there's an outlier on a box plot?
What was it? No, I don't remember.
It's
Definitely.
like a dot that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's like a dot that's like out from the data. There would be like a dot.
Yeah, there'd be like a little star.
Oh, yeah, dot.
Yeah, sometimes it's a star, sometimes a dot, but there would be something like disconnected, and then that would indicate, ooh, this was an outlier, so we disconnected it from the rest of our data. But we don't have any stars here on either of our box plots, so we can say neither distribution appears outliers. Now, the one thing that is a good test tip here, you do have to have context, but as long as you've established it in like your first sentence, we don't really need to keep reestablishing it every time. So I did indicate the 3/4 cup thing, but somewhere I'm going to have to indicate sugar content. And as long as you have the context somewhere in all of your sentences and it can be accounted for, that gives you credit for that too. So like last year when I was grading, my question was about avocados, and I had to look for like pesticide, avocado tree, and damaged fruit, I think were my 3 context words I had to look for while I was grading. So here it would be like sugar content and then 1 cup serving or 3/4 cup serving. So as long as that's somewhere in the paragraph you write, you're good on the context portion of it. So we'll just want to make sure we indicate sugar content somewhere in our next 2 sentences. Okay, so the C, do we remember what the C stands for? We're describing. Sorry, what was that, Erica? Get excited.
Center.
The center, yeah. So here's the biggest thing that people messed up last year on the box plot question when I was grading it. They used the word mean. This right here on a box plot, this is the median. Do not use the word mean because mean is an average and I don't have all my data points here to know if I like have an average. That's not a thing. So we can say we just have to compare the two. So we can see by the lines, obviously the 1 cup serving sugar content is greater than the 3/4 cup as it's displayed here. So, and we don't even need to put a number as long as you just have context and the comparison language, you're good. So the sugar content in the 1 cup serving is greater than the sugar content in the 3/4 cup serving. And that gives you this comparison. So you don't even have to like put the numbers, you just have to accurately compare the two, and you have to have the word greater than. Absolutely have to have that. Any questions about that one before we do the shape? Okay. Anyone remember how to do shape on a box plot?
I mean, I'll just go with what Tessa said.
Yeah, we're looking at the IQR of the box. Yeah. So basically, you just have to look for which box is wider. You don't even need to really remember IQR even. You can just say the variability of, and then context again. Like, I'm just going to put context because I'm going to walk from a room. So the variability of the 1 cup is going to be greater than the 3/4 cup because the box is wider. So that shows more of a spread in the middle part of your data with that box being wider. So this is the 1 cup is greater than the 3/4 cup. And that would be it. So it's got context. Shape is flexible, so you don't need shape necessarily. Outliers, they're kind of flexible on sometimes and sometimes not. So I would just try to mention it. And then your center and your spread are the most important in having the comparison word. Questions on part A? What are our thoughts? How do we feel?
I'm all set. I like this because it's reviewing our like socks stuff, and it's been a while since we did that, so catch up.
Yeah, it's almost like I knew I should pick something we haven't done in a while. Okay. Yeah, Tessa, if you're doing the stats medic review, you would have gone over something similar, so that's good. Okay, let's take a peek at part B. Part B, they give you some more wording and things, so I'll just kind of read it. We can highlight. After analyzing the box plots on the preceding page, the student decided that instead of a comparison of sugar content per recommended serving, it might be more appropriate to compare sugar content for equal size servings. To compare the amount of sugar in serving sizes of 1 cup each to the amount of sugar in each of the cereals showing a 3/4 cup serving on their side panels, it was multiplied by 4/3. So they transformed, basically adjusted the data. So the serving sizes were the same. The bottom box plot shown below displays the sugar content in grams per cup for those cereals that showed a serving size of 3/4 cup on their side panel. So basically we've now adjusted things. So what information, I would probably zero in on the picture myself, just because I already see the word adjusted sugar, and this is just kind of a lot of jargon right here. But what things stand out to you about the adjusted box plots? What are our thoughts? Feel free to chat it up or unmute.
I remember that when you did something, I don't know if it was a multiplier add, but when you did something like that, it, instead of like changing how it looked, it simply just moved it up numbers. Is that what happened here?
Yeah, we did do like a little transformation of the data. And basically on the key, the scoring guidelines here that I'm kind of looking at on the side, basically all we need to do is basically talk about how the center and the variability have changed now that we've adjusted things. But yeah, Kai, what you're remembering is we've basically taken and increased things by like a scale factor of 4/3. So it's like we've multiplied things by 4/3. So that's not necessarily going to change, like it's not gonna slide my data. It's gonna like kind of widen or make, you know, my data kind of do this because I'm multiplying. If I was like gonna subtract 2 grams of sugar from everything or something weird like that, then it would like slide it more. But since we multiplied by a factor of something to make that adjustment, it's going to make something wider or skinnier. I mean, it is going to change the median number to something else because we're multiplying it, but like the data itself is just going to kind of do one of these. So we just want to describe that change. So yeah, Tessa, you have said, let me go back and double check. Let's look at our original. Yeah, the 3/4 cup line. So here the median was about 10, but now with the change that we did, the adjustment to like basically make it equivalent to what would be in a 1 cup serving. So basically adding that 1/4 cup to make it a 1 cup, we now have a greater median at 13. So that is a change. So that did get higher when we adjusted that one. Anything else you guys notice about the box plots, or you can flick back to the original for a second and then cousin's like groaning from the office and he must be having a good day, right? All right, there's the changed one. The median was the biggest one that stuck out to me as well. Any other changes you guys noticed? You need me to flip back?
I feel like the maybe the 3/4 cup box got a little wider.
I think you're correct. So let's take a look at this. The box originally went from 8 to 12, so it had a width of about 4. And now it goes from, you know, about 10 to 16, which would make sense if we're multiplying by something to make that conversion, because it should get a little wider if I'm going to multiply by a number greater than 1, which 4/3 is greater than 1. Okay, so let's answer part B and just kind of look at like how we would do that. So again, once context is established somewhere, you're usually pretty okay to not just keep reestablishing it. So don't waste tons of time on, you know, saying 1 cup, 3/4 cup sugar, you know, every which way, because that'll, you know, it'll just suck up some time. But basically what we want to look at is describe the changes that we think occurred, and we can describe that in terms of, you know, shape and, or not shape, sorry, center and spread. So if we look at it now, we like redo socks essentially. I'm going to just do it in terms of the spread and the center like we talked about. Right now, since it's asking what new information do we have, we just have to describe each of the changes. So we would say the center of the 3/4 cup increased. So just like if you're using a comparison word, new information, you should utilize something like increase or decrease. Like if it's new information, that means there's a change. So you want to use a word that indicates change. So the center of the 3/4 cup increased. So I would say the medians are roughly the same now. So for the center, when we adjusted it, like that increase allowed these to almost match each other, which is interesting. So really those median sugar contents are about the same. And then the other one that we want to talk about is the spread. So for the spread, we would say the variability, Making eyes with the stylus is a struggle. It's like, doesn't want to do it. So we would say the variability here for the 3/4 cup has also increased. And we said from 4 to 6. I would say giving numbers here is still a little flexible. As long as you're using words like increasing and decreasing, then you should be okay. So the only other thing we want to do as far as like new information is like, okay, now that we've basically taken the sugar in a 3/4 cup thing, and we've adjusted that serving size to be like 1 cup instead, how do the sugar contents compare now that we're on like an even playing field? So the only other thing I would add is some sort of statement that kind of summarizes that. So I would say like overall, the adjusted box plot reveals essentially that we have more variability, and it does contain a higher sugar content per serving than we originally thought once we put it on like an even playing field. So I would say like overall the adjusted box plot reveals that the sugar content is greater than originally thought. So when we made the adjustment, it's like, oh, well, you know, it actually has a decent amount of sugar still if it's, you know, the same 1 cup serving size we're comparing. Any questions on that one before we try part C? There's a part C.
I'm all set.
Okay. Okay. So let me bop over here. Oop, got that twice. Okay, so part C, it says based on the box plots shown, so these are still the adjusted ones. I just copied and pasted them. How would you expect the mean amounts? So making a prediction about the average amount of sugar per cup compare for the different recommended serving sizes, and then we want to explain that. So this is a 2-part answer. And again, I took off a lot of sad little points last year when I graded the AP exams. If a kid didn't explain something, I couldn't give them full credit. So it's if you see the question mark and then it's followed by more words, you want to answer the question and then do the part where there's more words. So in this case, we're going to explain. So let's just talk about the average amount of sugar. What do you think would have happened to the average when we made the transformation? We don't have the average here, but we're just going to make a prediction on, okay, well, what do we think would have happened to that number? And we're going to talk about that. So what are our thoughts on this one?
Would it have increased?
For which cups? For the 3/4 cup? Yeah, it would probably increase because you know, everything else has essentially increased. We're now centered at a higher number. And so we want to kind of explain that. So we would expect the mean for the 3/4 cup size to increase. So that answers the question, but now we have to explain why we think so. So we could say because the box plot basically is shifted upwards. I mean, the box plot, median, and you could say the IQR, the box itself, have shifted up. Or you could say increased. So if those numbers are all increasing, your mean is going to also increase. You increased all your numbers, so when you calculate your average, that's going to go up. So that's the 3/4 cup size. We've done that. So we said what we think will happen. And then we've also, let's see, I said why. What about the 1 cup? Like, what do you think if we looked at the mean on this one? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that one? How do you think it would compare? Let me see if that's needed though, before I take us down that path. Let me double check the rubric and see what they graded on that one. Okay, yeah, we do want to talk about the 1 cup size. So this is where we're gonna have to think about shape a little bit, which this is a slightly older question, so that's probably why they're using shape. Okay, so sorry, I was rambling. So let's go back to the idea here. We do want to talk about the 1 cup size, because it does say, how does it compare for the different recommended serving sizes? So we talked about the change we'd expect in the 3/4 cup, but now we have to talk about the 1 cup and see what we think about that. So what do you think? Let's go back to shape a little bit. Tessa, do you remember what you said, what kind of shape this might have based on where this median's at? Do you think this would be left or right skewed?
For 1 cup, you said? Is it?
Yeah, for the 1 cup. So Tessa's left skewed, right? Well, yeah, we got to pick one of those. Go with your gut.
Oh, I meant to say it's left skewed, right?
Oh, correct. Yes, correct.
I didn't even realize that until I sent it.
Right? Yeah, we got to pick one. Okay, this one would be left skewed. Do you know why? We don't. Box plot is its shape is flexible, but this we could kind of say it's left skewed. Do you have a justification for that?
Oh, you're asking why?
Yeah. Why do you think? Why'd you pick left?
I just saw that the line for the median is kind of towards the right, which means that if we were to draw the chart like you did, the slant would be towards the left.
Yeah, there's probably some low numbers that exist over here. In all honesty, so this one has shifted upwards, and this one we could say like there's probably more low numbers in this data set than there is in this one, because we've now shifted that second box plot up so they're on an equal playing field. And so now when we compare them, it's like, ooh, well, there's a lot of data here on this one, and this box plot, like that's where the minimum of this box plot, this distribution would be, but we got a whole bunch more data in that low range than we do in the other one. So we would also want to say we would expect the mean for the 1 cup serving to be less than the 3/4 cup, because we have a possible left skew and we could say like the minimum of the 3/4 box plot or 3/4 cup box plot is, how do I want to word that? But I think I'm wording this poorly. Hold on. Basically, there's a lot of low numbers in the 1 cup, is what we could say. Yeah, let me kind of here. Let me clean this up a little bit. There's possible left skew, and lower let's say lower values. Let's just say more. So and overall lower values than the 3/4 cup. So something like that. So breaking down that question, there's, well, two parts. You have to explain and compare the difference in the sizes, and include some sort of just like reasonable explanation. So it's like you're telling me what change should happen. Like you're telling me, all right, well, this one would shift up. Like that mean is obviously going to get bigger. You shifted the data up, but it's still going to be less than the 1 cup. So that's where like this comparison thing comes in, but also you have to then explain why you think so with some sort of reasonable justification from some evidence from the graphs. And that's essentially that question. That is a sample FRQ that you would see on a test. That would be the first question in your lineup of 6 FRQs. So what questions do we have? Thoughts? Where are we at? How do we feel?
I feel better about this like part of stats, just to like review it and go over it.
Great. Okay, well that's good. That's a plus. You can attend obviously more than one Friday FRQ. You can come to them all if you want. Next week I'm going to look at a question too. But yeah, this is a good sample question one. Erica or Tessa, do you guys have any questions or thoughts? Great. Oh, tell your dad happy birthday. Okay. I think these messages are a little delayed today. Okay, so that's it for